Welcome to BaseballGuys.com. I'm your host, Ray Flowers. Forgive the voice. I've been sick, a little bit under the weather, and doing a lot of talking lately, so hopefully my voice won't crack like Peter Brady and the Brady Bunch. I'll do my best to keep it straight. There's a couple stories I want to hit on today, but before I get to those, I want to discuss what appears to be a massive amount of injuries to open up the 2010 season. Now, we'll have to wait and see. A lot of the players we're going to discuss haven't officially been placed on the DL. We'll have to wait and see if this is a trend, if it's just something that unfortunately happened at the beginning of the season. But there are an awful lot of players that have come down with injuries, and an awful lot of big-name guys who've already been placed on the disabled list less than 10 days into the start of the regular season. So I'm going to go position by position. We've got Miguel Montero at catcher, still waiting to hear the results of his MRI at this point. We know he's going to have surgery. We know he's going to miss at least a month. Could possibly miss up to the rest of the season depending upon what the results of the tests are, if they show damage with his MCL or not. We'll have to wait and see with Montero. Chris Snyder obviously gets a huge boost there in Arizona. At first base, we've got Lance Berkman. That knee continues to give him trouble. They haven't set a return date. They're hoping sometime late next week. At this point, April's a little bit of a question mark with him. Hopefully he'll be back before then. The Astros really need him. Their offense has been struggling terribly. You've got Derek Lee, who hurt his thumb today. He had tests. No break there. He'll probably only miss a couple of days. But another top 10 first baseman also injured. At second base, this position's been a disaster. We've got Ian Kinsler with his ankle. He ran, could only run at about 50%. News is not good there. That probably means he'll miss at least this week, maybe all of next week as well. He's just not responding as well as hoped after that second cortisone shot. Again, not a huge long-term concern, but something that for a guy who depends on speed and a guy that we've seen injured a lot in the past, it's really a concern. He might actually end up missing all of April before it's all said and done. We've got Aaron Hill, who went on the disabled list today with a hamstring injury. They don't believe that it'll be much more than about another week because they're going to backdate that DL stint with him. But again, big loss there. Another top 10 second baseman. You've got Mark Ellis. A top 20 second baseman, maybe top 15 if everything breaks right from him. He's going to miss a few days with a leg issue of his own. And then finally, Brian Roberts, who had the back issues, worked through that, made it ready for opening day. He then hurt himself, hurt his side, back. We don't know what's going on with Brian Roberts. We just know things aren't good. The jarring slide that caused the most recent injury also seemed to do something to his back. He had to have a second epidural shot on that area today, which means it might end up being 3 to 4 weeks before he comes back from the disabled list, not 2. So really not good news if you're a Brian Roberts owner. Third base, we've got Zimmerman, who's going to miss some time. He should be back by midweek. He's had some leg issues as well. You got Chipper Jones, who was out with one injury. He was rehabbing it, hurt another part of his body on the rehab. He also shouldn't be anything more today, but the two other third basemen, some big-time fantasy names that are also injured. At shortstop, we've obviously got the case of Jimmy Rollins, who's now back on the, Jose Reyes, who's now back on the field. I mentioned the name Jimmy Rollins because he actually was hurt today. He hurt his calf muscle during pregame warm-ups, was removed from the starting lineup, didn't play in the game. He's going to have an MRI on Tuesday. Keep our fingers crossed that it's nothing major with him, it's just a minor little hiccup. You go to the outfield, you've got Jacoby Ellsbury, who's out with his rib issue. You've got Grady Sizemore, who's now missed a couple of days with a back issue. Both those guys aren't supposed to be anything major. They're both expected to return well before the end of the week, but two big-time fantasy stars. Both guys are probably taken in the top 40 in every draft, looking like, hey, this 2010 season is going to start a little bit slow. You've also got Carlos Gonzalez with the Rockies, who was on fire. Pitchers couldn't stop him. He was hitting almost 400. A leg injury he's now listed day-to-day. Dexter Fowler looks like he'll ascend to a starting role and see some more playing time with the Rockies. On the hill, you've got Scott Kazmir, who began on the disabled list. You've got Chris Young, who went on the disabled list with the shoulder. You've got Cliff Lee, who's been on the disabled list as well. In the bullpen, you've got Joe Nathan, who's done for the year with Tommy John surgery. You've got Brad Lidge, who's working his way back in the minor leagues. Bottom line is there is an entire team, a fantasy all-star team, if you will, of injured players, the majority of which who have been or are on the disabled list. We'll have to wait and see how those scenarios play out because, again, as Ron Chandler pointed out in some of the research he did, 140 of the top 276 players from the 2009 season, 140 of 276 spent at least 15 days on the disabled list. So the bottom line is half of the top players last year were on the disabled list. Looks like we're well on the way to having that happen again this season. 3 stories I want to mention real quick. Jack Cust finally accepted the deal to go to the minor leagues with the A's. He'll be down there. He still, I think, profiles as a decent AL-only option. Now, the question with Cust is what happens if the A's trade him to the NL? If he goes to another team, that's not very likely to happen. He's still more of a DH type. But I have to think at some point the A's bring him back up, and Cust will do what he does. It's just a matter of how many at-bats they get. Still a decent bet to hit 15 plus home runs if he gets that playing time, and I think before all is said and done, like I said, he will. We've got the case of Nelson Cruz. Nelson Cruz is hitting .458. He's got 5 home runs and 11 RBIs here, and we're only talking about a week of the season, only 7 games with the Rangers. In fact, dating back to last season, a span of 134 games played, not even a full season, we have 38 home runs and 20 steals out of Nelson Cruz. Now, last season there was only one 40-20 guy in the big leagues. It was Mark Reynolds. Again, 38 and 20 for Nelson Cruz in his last 134 games played. Can he reach those totals if healthy this year? We'll have to wait and see, but he's off to a very good start. And then finally, we got the case of Prince Fielder. He's got Scott Boras as the agent now. No surprise that there are huge dollar figures being thrown around with Fielder and what he wants to sign a new deal for. He's claiming, or sources are claiming, I guess it isn't actually him, that the $180 million for guys like Teixeira and Mauer is the starting point, not the finishing point, the starting point of where he expects his contract to be. There's actually a report out today that says he's looking for $200 million over 8 years. Fielder won't even be 26 years old until May, but you and I both know there's no way the Brewers are paying $180 million. There's certainly no way they're paying $200 million. So it looks like after the 2011 season, Prince Fielder will be paying somewhere else for sure. Question is, will he be paying somewhere else before then? Because the Brewers just aren't going to pay him that kind of coin. Again, I'm Ray Flowers, BaseballGuys.com. Thanks for joining me, and I'll talk to y'all again soon here on Around the Horn.